Well, it's really lovely to welcome you all this afternoon, and good because quite a few of you were here at the session last night as well. So some of this is going to be a little repetitive at the beginning, but so you know what's coming. But very welcome to you all on behalf of the Dean and Chapter of Bradford Cathedral, and also the Eco Group, which has been instrumental in putting this together, along with our comms person, Phil, who's been an absolute star. So my name is the Reverend Canon Mandy Coots, so part of the Cathedral staff, one of the residential canons, and also Eco Group. Now this is our third webinar of our Eco Extravaganza 2020. It is our first online Eco Extravaganza and our second year of having an Eco Extravaganza. So this is quite new for all of us. It gives me great pleasure that this afternoon's speaker is John Payne. And before I formally welcome him, just the basic housekeeping notices. John is going to be giving us a series of presentations and films, and should be really informative. But in order for that to go smoothly, if we could remain on mute the whole way through, that would be really helpful. Now, this is the first of two talks this afternoon that John's giving. There will be opportunity for a lot more conversation in the second session. And in fact, we'll be having breakout groups, but there will only be a short time for questions at the end of this first session. But it might be that as John is doing his presentation, that thoughts and questions come to mind, and you would like to use the chat function, then please do so. You find your chat function at the bottom of the bar. If you take your cursor to the bottom of your screen, and you can type away there, and if we have chance, we'll pick up some of those questions, and we will do so. Phil's just popped into the chat bar that if you haven't got details for the second talk, if you follow that link, he'll make sure that you can be admitted at 3:30. We are going to try and finish this first one a few minutes before 3:30, so we've got time to get a cup of tea and do whatever we need so that we're all feeling tickety-boo. I've got a feeling Tanya's going to need a cup of tea to keep herself warm, so that's great. So yeah, so we will keep muted when John is talking. So just a little bit about John. John, I did a little bit of investigation about who you were. So, so he's a Joy in Enough coordinator, which I think we'll find out more about that at some point. Worked as a development project manager and country lead for the British Council in South Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, witnessing some of the impact of climate change is having on the vulnerable poor. He's a grandfather, a church warden, a chair of governors of the village school, trustee of a small village community organisation focusing on sustainability, and is mad about the operas of Richard Wagner. Well, frankly, John, I don't know how you find time to fit that in. He's one of 9 of the trustees of Green Christian. And today he will be giving us an introduction to the work of Green Christian, its purpose and its scope, its groups, its programs, and its vision. So he will show us a brief video and we'll go through the talks about that. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to welcome John and hand this over to him.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Bradford Cathedral for offering this opportunity. I see on the call there are a number of people who probably know much more about Green Christian than I do. My colleague Judith, I see, is there, and she is very much responsible for a range of things like the website on that we're going to look at shortly. So Judith and others, if you think I've got things wrong, do chip in at the end. The second point to make is that in order to get from website to video, I will occasionally have to stop sharing the screen and then restart sharing it. So apologies for one or two hoppings about that you'll find. So I'm now going to share the screen and go to the presentation. So that's happening now. And I want to begin, first of all, just talking very briefly about the overall aim and purpose of Green Christian, and then to show you a 6-minute video from our two co-chairs. So I think fundamentally what Green Christian about is sharing green insights with Christians and sharing Christian insights with other people in the green movement. I think it's networking is very important for Green Christian. And when we look at the website, we'll see there's a range of local groups that have come together. Overall, there's somewhere between 800 and 1,000 members. Judith will have the details of that. But I think networking is a pretty critical thing that Green Christian does. And we run a number of events that bring people together in different localities. But let me hand over to the experts. So I'll now hope that we can see the video from our two co-chairs.
Welcome to Green Christian. My name is Deborah Tompkins, and I'm one of the co-chairs of Green Christian, along with my colleague George Dow. Green Christian began in 1981. We are a volunteer-led membership organisation with charitable status, supporting individuals and churches in their environmental walk with God. We provide many resources, gatherings, and a place to wrestle with difficult issues among like-minded people. Creation is in trouble. Pollution, growing deserts, the acidification of the oceans, deforestation, plastics, and climate change are just some of the problems. One aspect of Green Christian is seeking to hear God's voice in the challenges of the present time. So we have initiated important campaigns, such as Joy in Enough, our campaign for a just and fair economy. Borrowed Time is a new project which aims to build networks for pastoral care as we experience climate and ecological breakdown. Our sister charity, Operation Noah, began as a Green Christian campaign. We also have the Green Christian Way of Life, which George will be telling you about shortly. We run regular events such as day conferences, workshops, and weekend retreats. Over the past few years, we have initiated the popular Green Christian On the Road Together days, organised by local communities. Each day has a specific framework, using material and speakers from Green Christian, but within that framework is opportunity for local creativity. We can also always be found at Greenbelt and at many other events, and we're happy to provide speakers wherever possible. We have an extensive and informative website with our blog, calendar of events, worship materials and prayer diary. We produce high-quality printed materials such as our twice-yearly magazine, our annual pamphlet Storm of Hope, and leaflets on various topics. We also have local Green Christian groups which meet regularly. For more information, head over to our website, greenchristian.org.uk. We'd be delighted if you'd like to come to any of our events, support us, or become a member. Membership starts from £2 a month. Thank you.
Hello, my name is George Dow and I'm co-chair of Green Christian alongside my fellow co-chair, Deborah Tompkins. I'd like to share with you today, very briefly, something called the Green Christian way of life. Now, the way of life is a rule of life, which is 4 spiritual disciplines. Now, many other Christian organisations offer such a thing, and for instance, the Iona Community and Third Order Franciscans and many, many more, and many Green Christian members are members of those organisations as well, but many aren't. And a number of us feel that it's entirely appropriate for Green Christian, in addition to all the other things that we continue to offer a way of life to our members, exclusively focused on creation care. The 4 practices, spiritual disciplines, are daily prayer and devotions, living gently on the earth, public witness, and encouragement. Now, we have resources which are freely available to offer to those people who want to commit themselves to this way of life. Prayer diaries, lots of suggestions, positive suggestions about living gently rather than a list of don'ts. Public witness is an interesting discipline. It's really saying that having committed to daily prayer and also reducing our fossil fuels by living gently, what can we get involved in? Now, that might be writing a letter to an MP, or it might be getting involved in a national or local campaign, for instance, to save a wildflower meadow. The final discipline is encouragement, and we do this by national gatherings, local and pairings and gatherings of companions, that's those who have committed themselves to following this. And also we send out personal monthly letters. If you're interested in this, and we do hope you are, then have a look at our website, our webpage, and the links from it. If you have any questions about it, then do contact me, and my address is there. So thank you very much for watching this, and I do hope you have a good day, and may God bless you.
Right, I hope that was an interesting talk for you. I'm now going to stop sharing the screen, and then I will open it up again to show you the Green Christian website. I will have one go at trying to get the link directly, but our website is a really, I think, amazing resource with huge amounts of materials. I'll just give you a brief tour, and Judith, if you think there's anything critical I've left out, you can say a bit more about it at the end. Under this tab, for instance, there's not only a list of some of the local groups that you can see there, Lincoln, Leighton, Buzzard, Leicester, and so forth, but rather interestingly, there's a map as well of where the local groups are. You'll see they tend to be concentrated in the South and Midlands. There is one in Leeds and one in Hull, but of course we have members all over the UK. In terms of resources, I'd like to show you here what again I think is an amazing resource, the prayer guide that is put together each month, and on every day except Sundays there's a brief story, a brief analysis, a brief statement about something that gives us a chance to reflect and then pray about it. Sundays there is a prayer, but most days, as you can see, it's really got a lot of factual information there that is telling us a lot more about what's going on in the world. you'll already have seen from the video that our magazine is a key part of what Green Christian has to offer. And if I click on that, you should be able to see the contents of our latest issue, and they include something about wet markets and animal suffering, a very interesting article by Rowan Williams, Jeremy Williams, who edits our Joy and Enough website that I'll come back to in a little while, has written a joint article with The Economist, Catherine Trebeck, and so forth. Lots of very interesting content. There's also our Storm of Hope annual pamphlet, and as you can see, there are book reviews, articles, and also things that you can put into parish magazines. There's a carbon reduction course here, and also, in addition to all that, worship materials, lectionary. That is the greening the lectionary that Ruth. Actually, it's not that one, but somewhere there is a link to greening the lectionary, which Ruth Newton, who was at the talk last night, that she puts together. Liturgies, plays, prayers. You can see there's a huge amount of content there, and also relatively new, an arts page as well. And there's a lot there to look at, a gallery for paintings, and also some poetry relevant to Green Christian issues. Turning to what's on, I should advertise a number of things. There's a number of online events and workshops that are happening this month. This one's Sitting Among the Ashes, about ecological grief. Something about carbon footprints that Climate Stewards is running with us. And there is, from the 23rd to the 25th, the Green Christian Online Festival. I'll just click on that, and you can see that's got a number of interesting discussions, including Jonathan Porritt and Bishop James Jones, Reverend Francis Ward, who's written a great book called Like There's No Tomorrow, and a whole range of other interesting issues. If we go back to what's on, you'll also see some an annual members meeting, also a Green Christian workshop about communication approaches for green issues, which Stefan Engstrom, a very active member, is giving. And the third set of sessions in our Radical Presence course is going to be starting on Wednesday, the 4th of November. So I'll now stop sharing and go back to the presentation. So again, there'll be a slight pause, and I'll share screen again and go back to our presentation. So I now want to talk a bit about Joy and Enough. I'll just put that to slideshow, so we have that clearly. And Joy and Enough is a program that I'll explain as we go along. The strapline is Awakening to a New Economics. And I guess what Joy and Enough is about fundamentally is asking ourselves, well, is it not the case that the climate emergency, biodiversity emergency are in a sense symptoms of something that's actually much deeper, goes right down into some fairly deeply held beliefs and assumptions about how the world should work, that sometimes perhaps we're almost unconscious of. That's a nice little picture. We don't have time to explore it in any detail, but trying to show some of those things that are under the surface that might be leading us towards where we are now. And of course, it doesn't include there, and now we'd have to, all the consequences that have, or all the issues that have led to the current pandemic. Well, that's an interesting slide, I think. And if you were to summarize it, the kind of rational individualism coming out of the 18th century and an instrumental view of nature. Nature is something to be done to. So our current economic model is exhibiting signs of system failure. We can say fairly confidently. Escalating damage to the global climate, inequality, indebtedness, advertising, and the relentless pressure to consume, lack of work-life balance, reduction in family time, neighborliness, community involvement, all those factors contributing the most to our well-being. And in many ways behind all that is the belief that economies have to grow continually, that economic growth is the be-all and end-all of the way our society is currently structured, and indeed our global society, not just our national society. So Joy Enough attempts to link some of the theological perspectives on this with some of the economics. It involves some theological concepts, that creation is a gift, creation is a sacrament, that humanity is not just a steward, but embedded in creation, that we're connected with creation. Repentance for the harm that we have done, and living more simply, something often stated in both the Old and New Testaments. So those are some aspects of what gospel economics, if you were to call it that, might look like, particularly the transformation of our whole economic system to focus on enough, on arriving rather than perpetual growth. And our web editor, Jeremy Williams, has written a brilliant book called The Economics of Arrival, which I thoroughly recommend to you. So here's a list, and we don't have time to go into this in too much detail, of all the different aspects that might state how an economic system based more on gospel values, what that might look like. Again, you'll see societal progress to replace GDP as measures, well-being to replace gross domestic product, and the perpetual growth of that as measures of how we're doing as a society. So the aims of Joy Enough are about creating a clear vision of a fair and sustainable economy, and getting the churches to provoke public engagement by government and business in some of the issues around economic reform, and public demand for that sort of engagement in economic reform. And those 4 bullet points are things that we hope to do in the project. I'll just give you a chance to read those. So this sounds very big stuff. And what is it that a small NGO like Green Christian can do? So I'll first of all just state these are the concepts that that lie behind the journey we're envisaging on Joy in Enough: confession, declaration, invitation, pilgrimage, and accompaniment. And these are the 6 components, not all of which by any means are in place yet, that we see Joy in Enough being able to achieve. And we've been lucky in getting some funding, both from the Passionists and also the Sisters of the Holy Cross, their trust, their grant funding scheme, that have given us a bit of help in moving these along. The components of this that are in place are the website and the partner networks. We've developed one version of the 5 or 6 part cafe conversation course. We call it Plenty. We decided it needed some revision, and it'll be trialed and out into the public domain, probably in a more online way than we would originally have envisaged in the new year. We're developing partner networks. Theological formation, coaching and mentoring are not really there yet, but are part of the long-term plan. So we're envisaging that this would be of interest mainly to Christians, though through them there might be, as it were, other fellow travellers wishing to become involved. But it is primarily focused on the churches. And that's the kind of offer that we eventually envisage. Provision of content is certainly there in the website, and that the website also provides a lot of information about similar groups, similar people working on analogous areas of interest. And as a result of the Cafe Conversation program Plenty, we are envisaging groups of people getting together to decide on local initiatives. So that's how Plenty is envisaged to look, a 6-part program looking at some of the issues that we've already examined, and that could be done and probably will be done in the first instance online, but the resources will be downloadable and equally could be used in local church groups. So the next steps as far as that is concerned is to finalise the online, the revised version of Plenty, recruit some facilitators for the online program, and see how we are going to ensure the face-to-face versions of Plenty are adequately facilitated. We're going to run pilots. Several organisations are interested in partnering with us on this, so we've got to do some more work in firming that up, and then thinking about what would it look like to be part of the Joy in Enough community. I'll now, and again, apologies for this, I will stop sharing and bring you back in to show you the Joy in Enough website. So stop sharing now. There we are. So this is the Joy in Enough website, which Jeremy and lots of other people have contributed to, including John Anderson, I should add, who wrote an excellent piece about about his church that he was talking about yesterday evening. You can see there some of the resources that are there to be looked at. green shoots, as Jeremy called it, which is about giving examples of what manifestations of a new economy might look like, other case studies. The Joy in Enough confession, which we have publicised for the last two Lent seasons, and which have been of interest to a range of churches. There are talks and sermons. There's even a reading list. I'll just show you that because it's actually quite interesting. Some good books there covering financial crisis, 2008, money and debt, tax, inequality. This changes everything under sustainability and climate. This changes everything by Naomi Klein. It's a particularly good read if you haven't come across it. And I'm going to be showing in the second talk at 3:30 an 8-minute video of a talk by Naomi Klein. And there's also some good books about economics, including particularly, which has gained quite a lot of traction recently, the book Donut Economics by Kate Rayworth. So all sorts of things in the website to enjoy. Recent articles, as you can see, about building back better, what the church can do about inequality, economic injustice. And these are some of the green shoots series. Germany prioritizes electric mobility, and Amsterdam using Kate Rayworth's Donut Economics in order to plan for post-COVID-19 economy. So there's also some recommended reading on Black Lives Matter. So fantastic resource, which I do recommend to you. And we're very lucky to have Jeremy working on the website for us. Just a few words about other programs. George has already spoken about the Way of Life community and has explained that much more eloquently than I can, but that's just a reminder of it, and more details, as he said, can be found on the website. Sorry, I'm just picking up a bit of paper. The next program that was briefly mentioned by, I think, Deborah, which is Borrowed Time, and this is still in development. And as Deborah said, it's really about pastoral care in the climate and biodiversity emergency. As more and more people are experiencing grief and anxiety about about environmental breakdown, the Borrowed Time is aiming to bring people together to take a journey to discover in the feelings they have their power for change. It's providing circles of support and public rituals where people can work through some of the emotional and spiritual challenges they have. It's looking at really a range of issues like that, and if that's something that you feel is of interest to you, again, the website has more information. And finally, a program that has developed really recently since the lockdown and pandemic in late March, a program called Radical Presence, which I'll be talking more about at 3:30. Radical Presence is a program that is seeking to bring people together online to discuss issues, obviously with an environmental, a climate emergency aspect. It's seeking to look at what the pandemic means, what it's doing in that context, and how we rebuild our lives, our economy, our society after the pandemic. It's based around, as we'll hear, pre-reading, some input in terms of a brief talk by one of the Radical Presence leaders, and a period of group discussion, which will be seeking to give you a kind of taster for later on this afternoon. So that's it really in terms of my presentation. So I'm now going to stop sharing, bring you all back together, and just ask if there are any questions that people have. There's quite a lot to take in there. I know it's a very quick rush through. She's still there. I can ask Judith if she's, from her vast experience of Green Christian, whether there's anything I've missed. Judith, if you want to unmute, please do. And I see there are some comments as well, which from Tanya and from Judith. Judith first, anything that you want to add to what I've said?
There's masses, but I'd rather just answer questions if people have questions, or develop what people say. We had a meeting about 4 or 5 years ago at Baildon Church, so we went along to John Anderson's, and I tried to organise it for local members of Green Christian, because but even still, we're all sort of so spread out. I mean, about 6 or 7 of us turned up, and we had a wonderful tour of the church, and we also did a very nice walk, and I discovered bits of Baildon that I'd never seen. It was lovely, lovely area. So that's something
I didn't mention, which is another Green Christian offer, is an email listing called C-Link. So it's a bit like a kind of Google list. Judith can describe it much more effectively than I can, but it's a tool for communication within the Green Christian community. Anything more that you want to say about C-Link, Judith?
No, except it was actually inspired by something that, what his name is, Wright. We had something very similar about 15 years ago, which was the Bradford Diocese. Somebody Wright had skipped and organised. So that was really why I got more in touch with Bradford, because I heard people put emails on and generally corresponded, which was quite useful. Even if it was just things like we need some new hymn books, or the chairs are broken, or sometimes they're much more philosophical. 1 or 2 of you will get my very occasional emails, because when I was involved with Bradford 10 years ago, we had Bradford Earth Care, and we had a group, and we had various events then, and I've still got this relic list that I send emails out to about once or twice a year.
I think Jemima wanted to say something. If you can unmute, Jemima, yeah.
Hello, John. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I thought I knew how fantastic Green Christian was, but you've just explained very beautifully how what a wealth of resource and what a community it is. So thank you very much for that. I was, for those who don't know, I work as the Environment Officer for the Diocese of Leeds, so cover the patch that includes Bradford and quite a large chunk of of North Yorkshire, well, Yorkshire basically, and I was just fascinated by the map, rather saddened by your map of groups. I first came across Green Christian as it was then with a local group run by George Dent in Harrogate, and that's where when I got involved with Green Christian. So I just want to, what could we be doing to encourage more local groups, and how can we get more people on board?
I mean, of course, I will answer that. I'll also ask Judith if she has anything to say. I guess in a sense, one of the things that we're discovering in the pandemic in many different contexts is that, groups can also form quite powerful groups entirely online, and Radical Presence is evidence of that, as we're finding. What could people do more? Or what could environmental groups do more? I mean, certainly the Derby diocese, I guess partly because they don't have an environmental officer as such, or a kind of dedicated one. So there's an environmental working group, which I'm part. We always ensure that it goes out to the anyone interested in the diocese, Green Christian events, Green Christian actions. So I guess, if you feel you need more information about what Green Christian is doing, that's something we can very easily provide. Any thoughts, Judith, from your perspective as someone who spends a lot of time encouraging people to get engaged?
Everybody keep trying. It's just coincidence. If you get 3 or 4 really keen people, then things will happen. But if there's only one keen person, then it doesn't happen.
No, I think just to come back to that point about online things, I think the difference now is that we have the technology to make sure that that person need not be alone, that there are others in different places that they can relate to.
Can I just say something, because it's new? The latest post on the website is from Mark Bolton, and it only went on this afternoon, because we're all white here, and I've been asking people, haven't you got any pictures of black people doing things? Because most environmentalists, a lot of them are white. Anyway, Mark sent a picture, and they've had a sort of link with the Birmingham church that comes out once or twice a year. So it's quite a nice picture, and although they're old, they're mostly old people. That sounds terrible, but it's quite a nice picture, and they obviously have a good time. And about 10 years ago, Settle, churches, we do things with churches together in Settle, we got in touch with Bradford, and it took an awful lot of organising, but eventually a group came out. And in fact, we went to, we ended up going to Malham rather than Settle, because that's a nicer place to take people. But there is the possibility, thinking of the Bradford area, again, it's nice to sort of pair up with churches and the country people. But again, thinking to do that, I've got to therefore get my church motivated, and it's such hard work getting one's church motivated, but we'll see.
I think in order to give everyone time for a cup of tea, coffee, and any comfort breaks, we're going to have to wrap it up there. So thank you all very much, and do have a look at our great website for more information on all the different aspects of what I've been talking about.
Thank you, John, very much. So John is going to carry on with his talk, and it's going to be a film, and then there is going to be the opportunity to break into groups for quite a bit of conversation. So this session will be about half and half, talk and conversation. During John's talk, it would be really helpful if you kept muted. But if you've got those kind of thoughts that come into your head and you don't want to lose them, then please do use the chat function to record those, and we can look at those as well as the session goes on. Just to remind you, this session will be recorded and will be made available on our website once it's gone through the usual sorting it out to make sure it's just what it needs to be. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome John, and without further ado, I hand this session over to him.
Thank you, Mandy, and thanks again to Bradford Cathedral for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. This is going to be a bit more technically challenging than the last one, because we're going to try and break you out into groups. If there are 10 to 12, 11 people, then maybe, Philip, that might be something like 3 groups. Or it may be 4 groups. We'll have to take a final view nearer the time. So I hope that's going to work smoothly. This will last about 45 minutes, 25 minutes of which will be in the breakout groups, discussing some questions, and there'll also be the opportunity to listen to a video by Naomi Klein, which I'll introduce in a little while. First of all, I'm going to share screens and just show you the Radical Presence website to give you some sense of what this is about. So I will attempt to find the website, which isn't immediately to hand, so I will just find out where it is. Okay, so I will open up the website, and I'm now going to share screens. So hopefully you can all now see Radical Presence website, the strapline of which, as you can see, is emerging to the post-viral age. So this is a program that was developed immediately after lockdown by our former chair, Paul Boddenham. And as the text says there, COVID-19 is forcing existential questions upon us, not only about our own survival or that of our loved ones, but about the deepest values on which our society is founded. Will our civilization get back to normal, or was the normal already finished? What kind of community are we learning to be? What kind of work really matters? When confinement is finally over, how do we want to emerge? So Radical Presence is a set of, if you like, conversations. I'll just explain a little bit about how it works. There are altogether, whoops, sorry for the wobbling. There are altogether 7 sessions. You can see the titles of the sessions there. And each session has a number of different components. There's some pre-reading to be done, and quite a lot of resources that are available. There's a library of articles here. There's also a Facebook Radical Presence site, which has a lot more in the way of articles and things that are shared by the project coordinators. Someone else has just come in, so I'll admit. The sessions after that pre-reading, the sessions open with some reflections from one of the Radical Presence leaders. There's a period of sharing a Bible passage and a brief liturgy. And then there are a number of set questions that are put for discussion to the breakout groups. The breakout groups, the whole session would last about an hour and a half. And the breakout groups would normally be around 50 minutes. We're halving that today, you'll be perhaps glad to hear. We're just doing a breakout group for about 25 minutes. So after the breakout groups have concluded, the group comes back together, opportunity to share reflections and thoughts from the conversations, and then a final closing liturgy. So this is an entirely online program that brings together people from across the country, really. 70 or so signed up for the first round in whenever it was, April or May, and another 70 for the second round that started up in August. So Green Christian is now recruiting for a third round of conversations that will be starting in early November. There's more information about that on the Green Christian website. I will now stop sharing this and go on to our presentation. So I will share screens again to move to our presentation. And I will go into slideshow mode. Okay, so I'm going to show you now one of the inputs from one of the sessions that people were asked to have a look at before the actual session online. It's an 8-minute talk by Naomi Klein, whose book, This Changes Everything, you might have come across when it was published a few years ago. Naomi's Canadian. She's talking, I guess, here mainly for a US audience, and there'd be some differences perhaps to some of the context in the UK, but a lot of it would be relevant, I think, to our situation in the UK as well. So I'll, without further ado, let you listen to it, and there'll be a question about this in the breakout groups. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just spend a bit of time looking at some of the questions for discussion in one of the Radical Presence sessions. And this particular session is called Kairos, which is a Greek word for something like a moment of truth. So I'll just read you what it says here. Ancient Greek has two words for time, both used in the New Testament. Chronos is the measured passing of time as on a clock, time moving from past to present future. Kairos, which originally referred to the right time to fire an arrow to best effect, or the moment in weaving when the shuttle should be sent through the loop, refers to an opportune or decisive moment to do something, especially something significant, and usually at a time of crisis or tension. An example of the use of kairos in Jesus' preaching is in Mark 1, verse 15. Jesus went into Galilee proclaiming the good news of God. The time, kairos, has come, he said. Kingdom of God has come near. Repent and believe the good news. So what we're going to do now, and as I said, this is where it gets complicated, is that we're going to discuss 3 questions. Now, what I'm going to aim to do, and I'll be just changing the appearance of the screen so I can get at the chat function somehow. What I may have to stop screen sharing to do that, but I need to just read with you the 3 questions, and then I'm going to try and paste them onto the chat function so that you can read them once you move into the breakout groups. The first question is, in the day of salvation I helped you, but does our civilization want to be helped? How do you feel about this time? To what extent do people around you perceive this as a spiritual crisis as well as a medical and economic one? Second question, Naomi Klein outlined a binary choice between 2 possible futures. Are there other ways the future might pan out? Are there other stories we might tell about the future? One of the source materials says there are almost certainly going to be some long-term cultural and social transformations. How do we use this time now to ensure that they are for the better? Do we act now or wait upon the Spirit of God to help us discern when the kairos moment is? What is the place of prayer and what forms might that take? So, Philip, I don't know if you're listening to this. Is it, you probably can't automatically cut and paste this. So I'm going to...
John, I've done it. It's in the chat box.
Okay, brilliant. So how many people are there in the group now? I can't quite see at present.
11.
11, okay. So we'll say that makes for 3 groups. Someone actually has just entered, so it might be 12. We'll make it 3 groups. We're going to speak for 25 minutes. Could group 1 have a look first at the first question? Could group 2 first have a look at the second question, and group 3 have a look at the third question? And if you want to do something else, like just talk about what Naomi Klein was saying, I mean, that's fine, obviously. 25 minutes isn't very long. So I'm going to stop sharing screen now. Any questions? You all okay? So we'll hope that this is all going to work out. You can look at what the questions are and remind yourself of them, I think in the chat function once we've broken into groups. So if there's no immediate concerns, I'll ask Philip to split us into 3 groups. If you could please just introduce yourself first to each other, and then perhaps after having a bit of a conversation, decide who's going to feed back to the wider group about any conclusions or what variations of thought you had on the subject. So we're all back together now. Please remember you've got to unmute if you want to say something. Were there reflections that you wanted to feed back, any thoughts that came out of the conversations you had.
Helen is our speaker, so Helen could to ours, please.
Apparently I said something that sounded really good and official, so we were looking at the final question actually, so I don't know if somebody wants, do they need to be done in order, John? Or
No, don't worry, just yeah.
So one of the things that we thought was actually, if you're a person that's not particularly well off and you're in poverty, it's actually quite difficult for people in that situation to engage with some of these issues, because if you're focused on whether you're going to be able to pay the rent or put a meal on the table, thinking about wider environmental issues is quite challenging. And so I said that I wrestle with that sometimes, in terms of working with people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. But to move on to where we were looking at whether we should act now or wait upon a kairos moment. I think we felt that it could be lots of different moments over a period of time, and that the place of prayer would be to sort of inform that. But it could be quite small moments where you're in a conversation with, say, one person, perhaps a colleague or a neighbour, or a wider thing where maybe you felt led to do something a bit more, I don't know, like write to a politician or something like that. And that prayer would be an important part of knowing how to approach that, but also petitioning God for change within society on a wider level. Mm. Does that sound official enough, ladies?
Mentions Kathy's church.
Oh yes, Kathy's. I've forgotten what I was meant to say about Kathy. Oh no, Kathy's church are having an eco year. Is that right, Kathy? Is that what you're calling it? You're muted.
You're muted. We can't hear.
Our churches together in the area are trying to use the eco theme right through the year. So with varying degrees of success, because at one end of the scale we have a large number of people who are friends of heat and wood and are very green, but rather anti-church. And the other end, we do have people who are in the very deprived areas of inner city Bradford. So sort of pitching it at different levels is quite difficult to sort of think out, especially we may not be able to meet physically very much. Anyway, we shall see what happens.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts. In group 2, where we had the question about Naomi Klein's vision being of two possibilities for the future, a good one and a bad one, and what do we think of that? So we worried that it might really be the bad one, or at least that nothing really will change. But then we also reflected on the importance of action. We talked quite a lot about MPs. We thought about the importance of small steps towards a greener economy, and we had an interesting discussion about narratives, about the importance of stories in persuading people to change. For some people, it might be those stories of the Blitz or Second World War, but there's also the need to construct narratives that are perhaps relevant for younger people, and maybe from outside this country. And we referred to stories around some of the Pacific Islands, the South Sea Islands, that are already beginning to be submerged. So that was a brief reflection on group 2. I'm conscious we're a bit challenged by time here, so a couple of sentences from the group dealing with question 1. Any thoughts? Did you have a spokesperson?
We didn't vote a spokesperson, but I'll jump in. We felt that the whole issue was a spiritual issue. We felt that most people, possibly some people, felt that that society did know it needed helping. Others of us felt that actually they didn't know they needed helping, and that were kind of oblivious to the issues. And certainly, yeah, that it was a spiritual issue with a moral and a concept that people had a concept that it was unfair, justice issues. And we talked about how Jesus offered us a pathway to speak about hope, and yeah, that there were positive ways forward, but we needed to engage the whole church.
Thank you all for your contributions and time spent in discussion. So we've had a taster for Radical Presence. I hope you enjoyed the hour we've spent together. If you haven't done it and you'd like to, the third round, as I mentioned, is starting, I think, on the 4th of November, certainly early November, and you can find out more details in the on the Green Christian website. So that's it from me, but to thank you all again for coming, and Bradford Cathedral for setting all this up.
A really big thank you to you, John, for your very thought-provoking session, and I'm sure the lively debates that followed after that. I have to say, I've just downloaded the prayer guide in between our sessions for October for Green Christian, and we will commit to doing that in our morning and evening prayer each day at the cathedral.